You're watching CNN Newsroom. I'm Cyril Vanier. The California Governor's Office of Emergency Services is going to be holding a press conference in just a little while. In fact, they are. So let's just listen in. All right, they're just testing the audio right now, so we'll be going straight back to them as soon as we get word from them. Now, I want to go to a resident of Ridgecrest, California, and find out how he experienced the tremor. I'm sorry, sir. I'm going to have to ask you to just give me your... all right, Brent Clark Palmer. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Brent. How was it for you? How did you experience this moment?
Organizing cleanup efforts. I mean, Ridgecrest is really good about people checking on their neighbors, but some of the civic hubs, like the museum and the library, needed help reshelving and getting to a place where they could open again. And I'm president of the charity which supports the library. I have to get in a plug for the Friends of the Ridgecrest Branch Library, and so we met in the parking lot, and we had about 60 volunteers who helped us put the museum and put the library back together. So that was all day, and I came home and I was on my bed. I was preparing to relax and a little bit, tired, just tired. And then it started. And fortunately, because I put my focus on things outside my own space, everything was still on the ground from the last one. So I knew I would be okay. But I have to say that, So
you started feeling this, you were laying in bed?
Oh, yeah. And I've been feeling them while I've been waiting to talk to you. The aftershocks never end. Aftershocks are a way of life here now. And even when you don't feel them, your stomach feels a little sick from the ground moving.
It's interesting you should mention that. I experienced an earthquake and some significant aftershocks myself, both standing up and laying in bed. And absolutely, it does make you feel a little queasy after a while.
A little seasick, yeah. Or maybe like you're on a horse and buggy or something like that.
So when the big one hit, the 7.1 quake, which is now being called the main event, how did that feel?
Well, fortunately, like I say, because I was in a space where it was my bed and everything that had fallen had already fallen, I have to say I didn't. But I have to. This is what I want to say: is it's how you feel afterwards. Right. It's like, well, why is this happening to us? And I'm an optimistic person, and I immediately thought, what's my catchphrase for this? We are unbowed. We are unbowed by what's going on here. And I immediately organized another volunteer meeting for next Monday morning, when hopefully we'll get some space from these aftershocks, and we'll look at, once again, reshelving in the library and putting things back in the museum. And now that we have this volunteer group, we've had the other local institutions interested in utilizing us. The schools are.
Brent, I'll say one thing real quick, that your catchphrase that you say we're unbowed. I mean, having been through an earthquake myself, you're a courageous man, because when the forces of nature are unleashed, in my experience, it makes you feel very vulnerable.
Well, I had 20 years with my ex-wife, so I'm fine. But
we'll move. I beg your pardon. We'll move right back onto the earthquake.
She was a force of nature, I can tell you that. But what I want Ridgecrest people to know is, we'll get through this, and I have to say, these big tragedies, like you've been through them, you find that you have people express love toward you that you didn't expect, and you find that people want to help. Everybody wants to help. And so it's just creating a space where people can help, and making sure that they can heal. And helping gives you meaning for what's happening. When you help other people, it creates a context around the tragedy or the chaos and what, like you say, what you can't control.
And how are the people around you, Brent? And I don't just mean the people in your group, and I appreciate that you're giving it meaning. I've also spoken to people this evening who were terrified. So I'm just wondering what sense you're getting of how people experience
well,
this.
I'm very active in the community as a charity guy, and I do see all those feelings expressed even when there aren't earthquakes. There are people who, don't like the way things are going, or don't like the way, don't like a certain taco or something. There's always going to be people who freak out and who are negative. I'm just not that way.
Are you speaking to us from your house?
I am.
And do you intend to stay there tonight? Are you going to sleep in your house? Do you feel safe
I am.
doing that?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, for me, this earthquake is defined for me not by buildings falling over, but by every building in town being shaken like a cookie box, and everything that can fall off the shelf has fallen off the shelf.
Yeah, and we've seen pictures of that. We're seeing pictures of a pool shaking in a way that, frankly, you just wouldn't expect. I'm hearing voices behind you. Are there?
If an earthquake could have a personality, that would be it. And so in my space, I haven't put anything back, so I'm not worried about something falling on me.
No, I think, and to be honest, if I listen to the USGS and what they've been telling us, there are going to be so many aftershocks, and you're feeling them, obviously, that it's not worth putting things back on shelves right now. I'm hearing voices. Are there children?
No, I don't know where that's coming from. It might just be my cell phone.
Oh, okay. It might also just be the video that we're playing.
Yeah.
So you're not putting anything back on shelves yet. But let me ask you this,
and
then.
We're delaying cleanup efforts for a few days.
Sure.
Yeah.
And let me ask, did you have power? Do you still have power?
Yeah. I have a friend who was in the fires in Los Angeles, and in the one neighborhood fire where it just ate up house after house, and his was skipped. And I don't know whether I'm experiencing that kind of luck that he had, but I have cell phone, I have internet, I have water, and whatever the other ones are.
You have everything. Look, you're one of the lucky ones. We've been speaking to authorities of Kern County, and they were telling me that almost 1,400 people are without power. And so it just depends where you are in the city. We have teams that are near the hospital where they don't have power. So it just depends. But I also spoke to residents who sit slightly above Ridgecrest, and they're fine. They were basically bystanders to the whole thing. So it just depends where you are, and some people got lucky, others didn't. Tomorrow's the weekend, so people weren't going to go to work for most people anyway. What do you expect things to be like tomorrow?
So you understand I'm very active with the library, so I just can speak to say we were going to open tomorrow. We had everything pristine and perfect. The staff were amazing, and now we won't open tomorrow.
Sure.
It's not going to open tomorrow. So, and I'm sure that's true a lot of places, and it is even for a person like me who tries to stay positive. It's very discouraging.
And Brent, just tell me this, and I know you've been cool as a cucumber during this whole thing, but are you afraid about the possibility of an even bigger earthquake, or an earthquake as big as the one you just felt in the coming days?
I do consider that might happen, sure.
Okay.
And as far as my feelings go, I never know my feelings till 10 years later, and then that's what I thought about that.
Brent, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
You're going through all of this with a smile on your face, and that's great. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your attitude in all of this, and thanks for your account of what happened to you this evening. Brent Clark Palmer, a resident of Ridgecrest. Thanks. I want to go back to our meteorologist, Karen McGinnis. She joins us from the CNN Weather Center. She's pulling together all the information we have on this. Karen?
Yes. As we heard in the briefing from Caltech, there's about a 10% likelihood we could see an earthquake of 7+ magnitude. Before, when it was a 6.4 magnitude earthquake, there was about a 5% chance. So we've more than doubled the chances we could see another strong or significant earthquake. The chances are seeing a 6+ aftershock is about a better than a 60% chance, and almost certain we will see a 5 magnitude earthquake take place. Those are the typical aftershocks that will probably occur for a couple of years. All right, I showed this yesterday. Here is Los Angeles. There's Bakersfield. San Bernardino is down here. They're saying that they have seen significantly more damage that has occurred. But all these lines are the different fault lines. We're going to zoom in across Ridgecrest. There are some intersecting fault lines, that strike slip zone. And so you will see the displacement. You may have already seen images of streets where there's a little displacement, and even as it rippled out, and that's why we're feeling that energy that just kind of radiates towards Los Angeles. By the way, the Los Angeles Fire Department says they've checked the infrastructure on the ground and in the air, and they're saying they are good now. Different story, San Bernardino, which is about 120 miles to the south of Ridgecrest. All right, so now we have our 7.1 magnitude earthquake. It's been 20 years since we've seen anything like this. A 7 magnitude earthquake is the equivalent about 200,000 tons of TNT. And you go to an 8 magnitude earthquake, and then we're doing just many multiples of that. All right, here is our seismic activity that has taken place over the last several days. Here's Ridgecrest. And you go in this direction, you head towards China Lake, and that's where the Naval Weapons Station is located. So you can better believe they are very focused on what, if any, damage may have taken place there. All right, estimated fatalities, we don't have any reports of any fatalities. The computers are saying a 65% chance you might have 1 fatality. Injuries, yes, we've heard about injuries, the extent of which we don't know. Okay, here's the shake map. Here's Ridgecrest, just about everybody there, about the 30,000 people felt very strong shaking, as you can imagine. You radiate from that the energy, and look what happens here. This is in that turquoise shaded area, light to moderate shaking in the LA area. About 21 million people felt that. You know they did. We heard our own Sarah Seidner say she felt it. We've seen pictures from the basketball games where people felt it. Restaurants, small markets, people could tell that something was going on here. They say it felt like a long time. We heard from the USGS that it was about 20 to 25 seconds. The foreshock, the 6.4 magnitude earthquake that took place yesterday, or actually 2 days ago, that lasted 5 seconds, but people in Los Angeles will tell you it shook for 30 seconds. The earthquake was 5 seconds. The reason it felt like 30 seconds is that energy that gets transferred here is actually bouncing off of different types of material in the form of granite, mountainous material, just a variety of different substrates here that reverberate around. And that's why it can't stop immediately. It just slowly winds down. That's why it's not a 5-second event for Los Angeles. The people in Los Angeles say this felt like a long time. It actually was a 5-second earthquake, as I said, but the energy from that just kind of radiates out. It feels less, but it's still nonetheless significant. All right, as we mentioned before, 10% chance. Doesn't sound like anything significant, but yesterday it was 5%. I need to send it back to you, Cyril.
All right, Karen, thank you very much for that. I understand that the news conference of the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services is now underway, so let's listen in.
Okay, you guys all ready to go? All right. All right, good evening. Thanks for being here. I'm Mark Ghilarducci, the Governor Newsom's director of his Governor's Office of Emergency Services. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the situation in Kern County in the city of Ridgecrest. As you know, over the last couple of days, there have been a series of earthquakes that have occurred in the Ridgecrest area, specifically around China Lake Naval Station. And tonight, around 8:20, there was a second very large quake, magnitude 7.1. The quake did last for some time. It was felt widely throughout, well, most of Southern California and even as far north here as Sacramento. The shaking intensity was very significant. Looking at our algorithms run through what we call our HAZAS, our hazard analysis algorithm, the shaking intensity was at its highest level in and around China Lake and just adjacent to the town of Ridgecrest. We have significant reports of fires, structure fires, mostly as a result of gas leaks or gas line breaks. There are gas line breaks throughout the city. There are also reports of water main breaks. Power is out and communications is out to parts of the community. As well, south of Ridgecrest in San Bernardino County, in the town of Trona, a small community of about 2,000. There are reports of also some building collapse and power outages and some gas leaks there as well. We'll give you briefings from the various agencies that are represented behind me to talk about conditions on our roads and some of the other impacts. Here at the State Operations Center, we are fully activated at the highest level. Earlier tonight, Governor Newsom did talk to the White House and requested a presidential emergency declaration to support our operations here in the state and provide federal assets and what we call direct federal assistance in support of all of the mutual aid assets that we are currently providing to mostly Kern County and some to San Bernardino County. Governor Newsom activated the State Operations Center at its highest level tonight and provided really right now a significant amount of fire and rescue mutual aid from the Los Angeles, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Fresno County areas to include urban search and rescue teams, fire strike teams, firefighters, hazardous materials response units, emergency medical services, ambulance strike teams, and personnel. In fact, roughly over 100 mutual aid personnel have been dispatched in support of these various fires and the support of both Trona and the town of Ridgecrest. It's important to note that Ridgecrest and Trona are both very remotely located on the eastern side of the Sierra, and the roads have been impacted, and getting resources into the area continues to be a challenge. It is a little bit of a benefit that just 2 days ago, there was a 6.4 earthquake that occurred there, and we had a number of resources already deployed in the area in support of Kern County. We were able to then turn those resources around. They had just been released shortly before the 7.1 and allowed us to have a pretty significant amount of resources available almost immediately. We have been in contact with both the mayor of the city of Ridgecrest. Both myself and Governor Newsom have talked to the mayor, talked to the police chief. We've talked to the county of Kern fire chief, and we've talked to San Bernardino County, and are coordinating here at the State Operations Center with all the state agencies, as well as those county departments, to ensure that any resources that they need are being provided. Huge priorities right now for medical support and for firefighting and for emergency power. We have been in contact with private sector utilities, both the water department, our gas and electrical utility providers, to ensure that they have enough resources to try to get water and power up and restored as fast as possible. The quake happened at roughly around 8:20 tonight, and so it got dark pretty fast, and situational awareness is sketchy because the power's out and there's not a lot of lighting. So we know that as the day breaks, we'll be able to get a better assessment of the total amount of damage. Throughout the night tonight, though, we are working to move assets and resources in place or into staging areas so that we can have those resources immediately available in the morning in those communities as necessary. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to several speakers behind me. They're going to brief on what their agencies and departments are working on, and then I'll come back and answer any questions you may have. So I'm going to first turn it over to Deputy Commissioner of the Highway Patrol, Scott Silsby.
Good evening. I'll be really brief. Just as a reminder, it's a really remote area. The good news is that it being the holiday weekend, all law enforcement and EMS had ramped up and had extra resources available, so that's very helpful. As far as CHP responsibilities, quite a few of us are out there on the handling the road closures with Caltrans, and from there, our folks peel off and go check the structural integrity of overpasses and roadways with Caltrans, and so far, other than what Director Kim's going to tell you, we're hearing pretty good news. From there, their secondary mission is to assist the local law enforcement. So right now I'm hearing that the calls for service have dropped considerably and that most of the calls are being covered pretty well. So as the director said, when daylight comes, we did have aircraft up too, but couldn't see a whole lot. So when daylight comes, we'll have a much better idea of what's needed. But the good news is the resources there are handling the situation well, and there's more resources going in the morning. So I'll be ready for any questions if you have any. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Major General David Baldwin, the Adjutant General of the California National Guard.
Thanks, Commissioner. California Military Department is mobilizing and deploying a joint task force to the impacted area that will include about 200 security forces, sustainment troops, which are logistical support, and aviation assets, including helicopters from the Army National Guard and cargo aircraft from California's Air National Guard. We've also alerted the remainder of the California Military Department, so all of the California Army National Guard, the Air National Guard, and our California State Guard in the event additional resources are required. I've also spoken with officials at the Pentagon, so if we need any help from out of state, from the active component, or from any other state's National Guard, that help will be on its way. I'll be followed by Chief Tom Porter from CAL FIRE.
CAL FIRE is prepared to respond with any of the state's resources that we have and that might be needed for this. As of now, we see that fire potential is pretty low for this weekend or moderate, and so we'll be able to use some of those resources from California's fire department to meet any needs that are unmet. Also, our Office of the State Fire Marshal is working with the liquid pipe and fuel providers to ensure that their pipelines are safety through our pipeline safety program. So, I will be followed by David Kim, Secretary of Transportation Agency.
Thank you very much. I'd like to update you on the status of 3 roadways. The first is State Route 178. There is significant damage on 178 as a result of a rock slide across both lanes near Lake Isabella. There are also severe cracks in the roadway just outside the township of Trona, and this is very close to the location where cracks were discovered as a result of yesterday's event, which were repaired quickly within a few hours by Caltrans maintenance crews. There is a full closure of State Route 178 in 2 different locations. I'll read them to you. From the San Bernardino-Kern County line to 14.7 miles east of the San Bernardino-Kern County line, there is an additional full closure at 4.1 miles east of the junction at State Route 184 in Kern Canyon due to the rock slide. The cracks on 178 will be filled by Caltrans maintenance crews with cold mix asphalt. A couple of other routes that were impacted were State Route 127 and State Route 190. There were rock slides on both routes tonight. They've both been cleared and both roads are now open. and I will now be followed by Health and Human Services.
Good evening, Mark Gomich, Deputy Secretary at the California Health and Human Services Agency. We have fully activated and have deployed resources both at the Emergency Medical Services Authority, the California Department of Public Health, and the California Department of Social Services. We're in close contact with all of the healthcare facilities in the region and have been in communication with them to ensure that they have all the resources they need to take care of the patients that they have in those facilities. And we also are working with the sheltering task force here within the State Operations Center through our Department of Social Services. Thank you.
All right, you've been listening to the emergency officials out of the governor's office in California. I now want to go and listen to emergency officials speaking out of Bakersfield who are continuing to give us the assessment on the 7.1 magnitude quake that we felt on Friday evening, California time.
Good evening, and thank you for coming, and most of you, welcome back. So at 8:19 this evening, the city of Ridgecrest sustained what is being reported as a 7.1 magnitude earthquake. As we know, on July 4th, we had a 6.4 earthquake, followed by several hundred aftershocks, and of which the 5.4 being the largest. So following the 7.1, we had 2 reported structure fires. Kern County Fire Department did an awesome job, got those under control and extinguished. And then there were several reports of natural gas leaks at residents. In fact, we were inundated with that. So Kern County Fire, law enforcement officers, and homeowners responded and shut those off as we could. And then PG&E, as they responded, fixed any leaks to the main lines in town. So those are all repaired and up and running. And now their focus is on repairing the residential gas lines. Our water system is intact and operational and was never breached, and no contamination, so water is good to go. And right now we are in a mode to where we're still answering emergency calls, and as it slows down, we will transition into other life-saving measures if needed. And currently the hospital is sheltered in place, and as a precautionary measure because of the structure until they get it looked at. Anything further on that, I would direct you to the hospital for those questions. Injuries reported, nothing but minor injuries and such as cuts and bruises, as the grace of God. So other than that, I will turn it over to the fire chief. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief McLaughlin. As I did not mention it before, what we'll do is we'll just go one at a time through each representative, and we'll hold our questions till the end. Afterwards, we'll handle some of the questions, and then we'll be available for individual breakouts as well. Let us now go ahead and give our attention to Kern County Fire Department Battalion Chief D. Mitchell.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Denisio Mitchell, Kern County Unified Command with Ridgecrest Police Department Chief. The Crest incident, almost immediately following the earthquake, we started to receive a numerous amount of calls for utilities issues, and then also we had a confirmed working structure fire at that point. We started a response initially quickly towards the desert area, as we did start to receive multiple calls at that point. Around that time, our command staff also had already started setting up the EOC again and started getting resources set up to respond. We do have a lot of mutual aid being put in together right now to come out here. It's not just us, but initially Battalion 7 resources were pulled out to the desert to address those issues that we had. First one being that structure fire with multiple reports of gas leaks, smells of gas in the area, and electrical issues. Following that knockdown of fire, we had a second report of a working structure fire and cut resources loose to address that as well. During those operations, we simultaneously had aerial recon done in the city of Ridgecrest. Helicopter 407 provided that along with Air 1 from the Sheriff's Office. They did not report any significant structural damage from the air, but that's from the air. As soon as we start getting ahead of the calls with hazardous conditions and utilities and life safety issues we may have, we'll start transitioning to doing an organized search of the city grid, looking for structural damage, stuff of that nature. We do have our USARs and rescue task force in place for that kind of need, along with mutual aid that's being sent this way. Currently, we have the city broken up into 2 branches, and we're breaking out the city into the north and the south branch and addressing issues from that nature. At this point, we're starting to catch up with the hazardous condition calls and the in abundance of calls to 911. So we'll start transitioning at that point to the organized search and assessing for structural damage. On top of that, the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, is open, so we are in command with our OES personnel and also our command staff from the county side. As far as other operations, we do have people that come to work, backfilling the stations, and at the current moment we have adequate staffing and personnel addressing the issues of the Ridgecrest City. We have been experiencing some aftershocks, nothing new reported, but currently we're waiting and standing by for that and waiting to transition to the structural grid search. That's all we have at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Mitchell. Now we'd like to give our attention to a subject matter expert. We have Ken Hednut here from USGS to speak with us.
Just want to say, first of all, I owe thanks to the Navy base for allowing us access there today, and also to the city for their support here, the mayor, chief of police. We had just had briefings as we came out of the field today, we being myself and Janice Hernandez from the California Geological Survey. With support from the California Highway Patrol, we were able to do aerial reconnaissance of what we call the surface fault rupture. When an earthquake happens, our sensor network picks that up, and of course we automatically locate and get that information out to everybody immediately. We also then follow that up, and in larger earthquakes like the 6.4 and now the 7.1, we also look for fault surface rupture. This is how we confirm which fault the earthquake occurred on. So we'll see a pattern of aftershocks and we'll have a hunch about which fault that's on, but until we get eyes on it, that's when we confirm. So today we were out by air and also on the ground looking for surface fault rupture on a previously mapped fault. We did find fault surface rupture both out of the base on Highway 178, where you had seen images from last night, and then also that rupture continues from that point on Highway 178. It also continues to the northeast and to the southwest. This is a somewhat atypical type of earthquake in Southern California. We've seen these before, though. These are on what we call cross faults. So these are faults that are against the grain of the main San Andreas fault system. So the San Andreas fault is running from northwest to southeast through the state like a big diagonal cut. And then against it, perpendicular to it, are this other set of faults in some places, and we call those cross faults. So what's typical is to have your bigger earthquakes on the faults that are oriented like the San Andreas fault, that are moving right laterally. What's less typical is a cross fault rupture that's left lateral. So when the 6.4 occurred, that rupture was on a cross fault as well as a portion of the main fault, and now the 7.1 is on the main fault. We've seen that main shock is just northwest of that intersection, so we know rupture went toward the northwest. It also went toward the southeast. Our geologists have been out in the field this evening and confirmed fault surface rupture farther to the east on 178. So we know that that fault broke where we're seeing the aftershocks along it. To Tomorrow we're hoping to get in the air again to do reconnaissance and look for surface faulting associated with the new main shock, the 7.1. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hudnut. Now we would like to turn our attention to the City of Ridgecrest Mayor Breeden.
Thank you all for coming. I would like to say a few words to our own citizens. Many of them have experienced something that is very traumatic, somewhat unknown to most of them, and many of them are sleeping outside tonight. I know that it is a difficult situation, but they're fearful to be in their homes, and we are offering any services. As noted earlier, we have places for people to shelter here, but many are choosing to just be with their neighbors, both in their sidewalks, in their driveways, and some of them are in the streets. We're asking everyone to drive safely, be careful, watch for these people, and understand that we are doing the very best we can. It is not an impossible task to take care of all this, but it is going to be a longer task than we thought the other day. So I thank you all for coming. I appreciate the consideration that you're going to give to the citizens of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Breeden. We also have with us today Kern County 1st District Supervisor Mick Gleason, who will be able to speak with us as well.
Thanks. Thank you all for being here. Special thanks to the first responders, all of them that have performed so brilliantly in the past day or two. It's been a phenomenal experience to watch these guys and gals get together and work together, and with such dedication and such devotion to helping this community out. I've had a lot of conversations in the past couple of days. I've talked with the White House. I've talked with Senator Feinstein, Senator Harris. I've talked with the governor. Everybody's fully engaged in what we're doing and understands our situation and is trying to give us as much support as they possibly can. I toured the base today in the city with Congressman McCarthy, who's fully engaged, Senator Grove, and Assemblyman Fong. So everybody's engaged, and we're all over this thing, and we're looking forward to its rapid conclusion. As soon as Mother Nature stops hounding us, I guess we'll put this to bed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Gleason. And as he mentioned, we have representatives here as well from Senator Shannon Grove's office. We have representatives here from Bakersfield City Fire Department, Los Angeles County Fire Department. So there are many resources that are pouring in to help this community. So at this time, we'd like to go ahead and open it up to questions briefly before we go to the breakout on the one-on-ones.
What are we calling the epicenter? We were on 171 when the quake hit. We had just passed the fissure. We felt the ground move. We went about 8 miles east, and we were about 2 to the town of Trona, and the ground shook, the hills came alive. Were we on the epicenter? We would know where the epicenter is. We were with geologists out there. They were analyzing that first fissure, and then the ground broke where we were driving. Is that a new fault?
Question, but in essence, where was the epicenter? Is that something that we can state officially that we know at this point? Yeah, let's go ahead and do that then.
And state your name again.
Ken Hudnut, U.S. Geological Survey. The information about the epicenters gets updated continuously, so people are checking the automated locations, and that gets updated through time. And also you notice the magnitudes bounce around just a little. So that's just normal. So the epicenter of the main shock, when I was doing this before, the 6.4 where it intersects the northwest-southeast oriented fault, the epicenter of the main shock is just about here. It's in a remote part of the base. I don't have any place name to give it a name right now. We're not going to call the name of the fault that it's on until we get eyes on that. Hopefully tomorrow we'll confirm which fault ruptured. As to information source, Caltech is the definitive Southern California seismic network operator, and U.S. Geological Survey works in partnership with them in Pasadena. The website you want is SCSN.org, Southern California Seismic Network.org. Also earthquakes.usgs.gov. So those maps allow you to interact, zoom in, zoom out, put satellite imagery, topo, and you can get all the information right there.
Ken, for all the people who are going to be listening who are out there tonight in front of their homes or in their homes, what reasonably can they expect in the way of seismic activity over the next 12 to 18 hours? What should they be expecting, anticipating, or be concerned about in that time? Please, as non-technically as possible.
I'm going to give a quick sketch of the basics, but also point you in the direction of the official USGS aftershock forecast. If you search on that, you'll find it for details. But basically, for a 7.1, people should be expecting at least one 6.1 magnitude or higher, and at least 10 5.1 magnitude or higher. And you've been feeling them roll through. We're getting plenty. I don't know the detailed stats on how that breaks down as to how it matches up with expectation, but we'll be also adjusting the official aftershock forecast as we go through this.
Chief, if you would, based on the information that you just got from USGS, what would you advise people to do and prepare in their homes and what they're doing to get through this next period with all these shocks that probably will be coming in the next 12 to 18 hours?
Okay, so the question that has been posed is, what is the safety message for the residents of Ridgecrest? What should they be preparing to do? Correct.
Well, obviously, there are concerns. Children, small children, obviously are frightened with these, so making sure that they're safe. I would probably start taking some stuff off of the walls if it's not already down, and high places. Make sure that you're not sleeping under something that's still hung up. And we can't forget about the pets. The pets are extremely nervous during this time frame. And then make sure that you have plenty of supplies when the stores are open and things like that. Make sure that you're stocking up just in case that we have something bigger than we had today, and it's stuff starts crumbling and these stores can't get back open. We need to make sure that and if we can't get to you right away, you have to be able to take care of yourself for a period of time. So I know that we all preach that we need to be prepared, and I know it's difficult, that we always say we will, but now's the time. So prepare yourself, especially for the next, I would say, week, 2 weeks. This isn't going to stop in the near future. As we know, the aftershocks, they haven't slowed down since the 7.1. There for a period of time, it seemed like it just kept, there was a constant vibration. So be prepared. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, Nurse and I came to LA 5. We were on our way to Trona, and people told us that they had little water, that their tank was not filling up for the city, and that they only had a day worth of water for their children, for themselves. Now that road there that we were on is buckled, it's shut down. How are they going to get water, and what do they need to do? Or if they, some of them don't even have power, but if they can hear you.
Okay. Actually, we had just put out on Facebook, we were currently working that issue, trying to help them. It is a different county, but they are our neighbors, and we care about them. Many of our men and women work out there, so we do care. There's a stack of water sitting over there that people have donated that we can't get to them now. So it is an issue. We can't get there, obviously. I do know that they have crews en route. I can't speak a lot about what's going on there because I don't know. I do know they have help en route, and let's hope they get the help that they need, and obviously we would provide what we can, but right now our concern is here.
Chief, I don't know if this would be best addressed to the fire chief or to the supervisor. If both of you could step forward for a minute. Do you have any kind of a clue or any kind of a timetable on when we might expect additional resources from the state of California or a supervisor from Washington, perhaps FEMA or anything else coming in here? Have you been apprised of any kind of a timeline?
So the question that has been posed is there a timeline, and what is expected to be received by way of resources from neighboring jurisdictions as well as further jurisdictions, correct?
Basically, yes.
Would you like to comment on that?
So to answer your question, sir, our chief reached out almost immediately once that 7.1 happened. So OES was already involved with that request. And we had at least strike teams coming from Region 5, Region 6, Fresno, LA County, LA City, and Orange County are all sending us USAR's task force engines. We already have people here on scene from out of county. That's currently taking place. We do have more coming. I would say within the next couple hours, we should expect mass quantities of those people being here. But we've already received outside help almost immediately. And they're already here, and they're already in the form of getting ready to complete that grid search I was talking to you about from earlier. So as far as the fire side of things and mutual aid and support from the state, we have an abundance of people coming. We currently have a lot of staffing in Ridgecrest ready, prepared, and we're just standing by waiting to address those issues.
In terms of resources, we spoke with county officials earlier today in Kern County, and they were talking about how you guys really assess when your resources are going to run out, and then that's when you guys tap into that mutual aid program. So if you can maybe just bring it for our viewers in Bakersfield right now in terms of what your resources are looking like for the people up here in Ridgecrest for the next 24 hours.
As far as the staffing levels and things like that, as I stated, so almost immediately following the 7.1, essentially our entire battalion in the desert side was engaged on that. So we had engines already engaged from that. And like I stated earlier, our chief had already made the phone calls to OES to get that started from outside resources, mutual aid. And then our department, Kern County Fire Department, has already started staffing our stations and callback procedures and like that. So already, immediately, we've had stuff already filled, backfilled, and ready for the current mission we have going on. So due to fast actions on part of our command staff, the chief, and then also our mutual aid entities behind us, we're adequately prepared. I mean, it does have to do with the fact we just had a major earthquake earlier. So we actually had resources nearby anyways as a result. So we're ready to go and staff.
It's more so food, water, the essentials that the evacuees have been talking about, getting that here for them.
Yes, that stuff has trailed in, like the chief had stated. We do already have stuff here, but as the incident is progressing, as things digress and get bigger, our primary focus right now is Ridgecrest. That's where our focus is right now, right? And then as soon as we start addressing that, we start branching out and start to identify those secondary resources that may need assistance. So as far as logistical needs as water, ice, gator food, stuff like that, that stuff is happening, it's being set up, but right now our focus is in the city of Ridgecrest due to the mass population here.
We're getting word that there may be an evacuation out of Trona, where we were on our way to.
Let's hold off on that for one moment. The chief of the Ridgecrest Police Department has something that you'd like to interject here real quick.
Yeah, as far as resources go for on the law enforcement side, we were already staffed. We had a large presence already with the Kern County Sheriff's Department and California City PD. They were here, so we were at a level that we felt comfortable with. And however, when the quake happened, Bakersfield PD immediately sent a team, as well as California City sent additional officers, and then the Kern County Sheriff's Department, they had a wave come in as well. So law enforcement wise, we're sufficient right now, and now it's preparing for the future. So what was your other question?
Of a pneumonia leak. We're hearing in KTLA that there may be an ammonia leak near Trona from some people who we're in contact with here. They say they've been evacuated. They're on the side of the road and there may be an ammonia leak.
I have not heard that yet. So your information is probably more updated than mine.
We heard there was a mobile home park fire earlier. What kind of damage
Yes.
was done fire-wise from the quake?
I have not been out there. Okay. Mika's been out there,
So we have a question about the actual specifics of damage that may have occurred in one of the residential areas here in Ridgecrest. To speak on that, we'll have the chief, battalion chief from Kern County.
Yes, ma'am. So as far as the structure fire that we had, We actually had units that were en route to a hazardous condition, but one of our company officers reported a heavy smoke column. They diverted to that. We had a working fire. They got in it quickly. Normally we're looking at a 5-engine response, but due to the nature of the mass calls we had going on, we actually diverted 2 engines to it. Had units on scene, aggressive fire attack on it, got knocked on it quickly. We were able to confirm that people inside were okay. We had all accounted for. There was no injuries. They were able to protect exposures right by it as well. So as a result, they kept it to the building of origin. And that was the same case with the other secondary structure as well. Due to the abundance of calls, we were only able to cut loose a couple entities, engines to go towards that. Those guys were aggressive, same kind of tactics, protecting exposure, sorry. But they were also effective, and they held to the building of origin. So both instances with structural fires, it was damage was held to the building of origin. No reported injuries, a civilian or fireside.
What about the base? Are there any?
So we have a question about the base, and we don't have a representative here from the base, so we wouldn't be able to speak on actually what's occurring on the base. At this time, though, we are going to conclude the press conference. All the individuals here will be available for one-on-one breakouts, so feel free to go ahead and speak to them on whatever individual questions you may have. At this point, we don't have another exact time planned for the next press conference, but we will notify through social media. We will let out a press release as soon as we identify when the next press conference will be held. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, you've just been hearing from the emergency services, law enforcement services, and fire department, both on a county level and on a state level before that. And before we go to our correspondents on the ground in Ridgecrest, I want to sum up what they've been saying. It looks like, first of all, the best piece of news all day in this earthquake situation is that there are no reported fatalities. So nobody has died from this earthquake. A reminder, 7.1 magnitude earthquake felt shortly after 8 p.m. local time in California. It is now, that was about 4 hours ago, as it is now shortly after midnight local time in California. So no fatalities. However, there were some injuries. We don't have an exact number from those officials who were just speaking. We're just told that there were some injuries, in particular in Ridgecrest, and I am assuming in surrounding areas. And there were many, many calls about gas leaks. Now, we know, and we've been told from the beginning, that this is always a danger in these earthquakes. Ruptured gas systems, ruptured gas lines. Now, that was the priority for emergencies. They worked on 2 reported structure fires. We understand that those have now been put out. That the gas leaks, when those were reported, and there were numerous phone calls that those gas lines were shut off. The authorities said they are still answering emergency calls, but as those begin to die down, as they have done already, then during the night, emergency services will start looking for structural damage across Ridgecrest and surrounding areas. So that's where we stand so far. I want to go to our correspondents on the ground now. Alex Field is in Ridgecrest. She's been there for more than 24 hours. She experienced the aftershocks after Thursday's earthquake, and she experienced this big one here now, the main event. It's after midnight now. Give us the lay of the land, Alex.
We are not hearing the volume of sirens that we were hearing earlier in the night. As you point out, there does seem to be a slowdown in response to emergency calls. I would think that at this point, people have a better handle on their surroundings. They may have determined at this point the safety of their friends and their family members. There are, of course, those structural concerns that you point to. It's going to take daylight, of course, to get a better handle on that. And there was the major concern about the gas leaks. That was something that we could smell almost in the immediate aftermath. As we made our way around the neighborhood here, we saw that heavy black smoke, and then you could smell some natural gas. We pushed back to this hospital where we've been positioned for a lot of the evening. They did have this triage center that's been set up here. You do point out no reported fatalities at this point. But yes, like you say, we know there are some injuries. We don't know the extent of injuries at this point. What we do know is that people are left really badly badly shaken by this. I can attest to that personally. This was an experience that very much rattles you in every way, and it really resonated with me to hear the mayor speaking a little bit earlier about the fear that people have this evening, the fact that so many people will just go ahead and sleep outside of their homes tonight, that they will sleep, in their lawns or on the sides of the streets. And she was urging people who are out and out in their cars to really be careful and to be mindful of that, because there are so many people who simply do not feel that it's safe to step into their homes right now. I want to bring someone in. Our colleague Paul Verkamen has been out. He's been driving around. He is a veteran of these earthquakes. First of all, Paul, we've talked about it a little bit. This was the biggest one I've experienced. How did this compare for you to others that you've covered?
Well, I've covered a lot of earthquakes in California, and I covered the Northridge earthquake, and you might remember, and some of you out there, 6.7, but of course in an urban center in Reseda. So on a personal level, I can remember I had transferred from the New York Bureau. I was living in temporary housing. The television went hurtling across the room, glass shattered everywhere, but was safe and sound, so went into reporting mode. And Northridge was marked immediately by what we saw a little bit of tonight, and that's those gas fires. You get a gas main in that case that ruptured, and all of Ventura Boulevard, it seemed like in some parts of Los Angeles, on fire. Massive damage, calamitous. Garage collapses, building collapses, 57 officially dead, almost 9,000 wounded. Now let's take a deep breath here. This was absolutely nerve-wracking, as you pointed out, for all of us to be through this. That 7.1. It was stronger in a way. In this instance, I was outside. We were in our car. We went to the middle of the street. We're trying to avoid power lines. Demir Loretic is also on the other side of this camera. I should note he's covered a lot of these quakes, and instinctively, to his credit, he drove to the middle of the street.
So given what we felt here, given the intensity of it, now that you've had a chance to take a look around, is the damage that you're seeing at this point, does it meet what you would have expected after feeling what you felt?
No, I feel this tremendous sense of relief. This is of no solace to somebody who might have lost their home, but we did not see mass casualties as we drove through the checkerboard of light, if you will, in these neighborhoods in Ridgecrest. This sits in a high desert valley. We did not see something that we witnessed in other earthquakes where you have unreinforced brick masonry buildings and you see a lot of that come tumbling down. Of course, California's been extremely aggressive in its quest to have buildings retrofit. So because of a lot of these new buildings seem to be newer, more flat, no high rises, we didn't see anything that would happen, for example, in an urban center where you might have people injured from glass falling from a 10th story. That just doesn't exist here in Ridgecrest. I think the population here is about 27,000. Now, let's talk a little bit just for a second about what we did see. We saw that immense fire not far from here, black smoke going up. We actually were just wrapping up, and so we went over there. The firefighters hadn't even arrived. And the suspicion is it's another one of those, we call it, a 1-2 punch, somewhere near the water heater in a garage, perhaps. We saw this yesterday. You get a rupture and a gas-related fire starts.
And that is what we're hearing from officials, that those gas-related fires are certainly something to be concerned about. Paul, thank you for your perspective, what you saw out there tonight. Cyril, I think at this point, Paul does give us a very good sense of what he's seeing out there. We do know from officials that it will take daylight to get their arms around this entirely, but really the message that we heard here, even after the 6.4 quake on Thursday, was that overall they felt that the community had fared better from that one than you might have expected in a more populated area. We're going to have to wait to hear from them how they see the community as having fared after this one at 7.1, much more powerful.
Yeah, and Alex, I'll just say this. You've got more aftershocks coming your way, I'm afraid. The USGS was asked, after this kind of earthquake, what should people expect in the hours after that? He said for what you experienced, for a 7.1 or higher, expect at least a 6.1 magnitude earthquake in the following 12 to 18 hours. So, stay safe. Do brace yourselves for that. Make sure you're taking all the safety precautions. Alex, thank you. You're doing a fantastic job. So's Paul. We'll speak to both of you again. We'll take a short break for now.